I, okay, excellent. Yes, so I'm here to talk about Monarch Butterflies. And what I do is I have raised them and I have tagged them. And I'm also going to talk about, again, the conservation and the protecting and creating habitat for them. So first off, I just wanted to share some facts about monarch butterflies. So one butterfly, one female, can lay up to 500 eggs in just a couple weeks in August. And then about less than 10% of those eggs laid will actually survive to become full adult butterflies. And that's just the 10% that make it to a butterfly, and that small little 10% has to try and fly from here, where we are in Ontario, all the way to Mexico. Then the difference, I like to touch base on this, is that they make a chrysalis from caterpillar to chrysalis, and that's different because they've kind of formed that inside of their bodies, where moths are specific to the cocoons in which they make a house around them. But the butterflies actually, I'll show that later, I have some photos, they actually molt off their caterpillar skin, and inside is the chrysalis, and then inside of that is all the makings that's going to turn into that butterfly. Once they hatch from their eggs, the caterpillars, they live for about 2 weeks, and then they go into cocoon for another 2 weeks, and then they're the butterfly. And then it's actually the 4th generation of monarchs that make their way to us and make their journey to Mexico. So I'll get into that a little bit. This here kind of shows the cycle in which the butterfly, the monarch, goes through. So let me see, I got my pointer here. So they have, I'm going to start here in December. So when they winter in December, they stay in Mexico in their wintering grounds in December, January, February. Then in March, they're going to start making their way to us. And they'll make it as far as they can. Then they will mate, lay eggs, have caterpillars. Those caterpillars will turn into butterflies. They'll make their journey as far as they can go. They're coming up to us in Ontario. As far as they can go, they breed, have more caterpillars, more butterflies. Their lifespan is just a couple weeks. Then we have our 2nd generation, which does the same thing. Our 3rd generation is the one that we're going to see. And they're the ones that are laying their eggs in August. And those are the eggs and the caterpillars that I then collect and I raise and I tag, because then that's where we are, August, September. The ones that we see now, the ones that I raise, are going to make their journey, migrate all the way to Mexico. And their lifespan is up to 9 months, in which they make it to Mexico, they winter there, then they try and make part of the journey and starts the cycle over again. So all the monarchs that we're seeing right now, which I'm not sure about your area here, I'm seeing so many, they're all gonna live the 9 months and try to make it to Mexico. So this here, I like to just kind of say that again on the map. So say that it is winter, and then spring comes, they come as far as they can, say about here, Texas, they'll have their babies, more butterflies for about 2 to 4 weeks, live, they get as far as they can, have their new butterflies, which make it up to us, which we see breed and have the 4th generation, and that 4th generation has to fly all the way back down here to Mexico. There is over here a small wintering area also in California, and they would go to BC, a shorter journey. And then some could find their way to Florida, but I also told that quite a few just stay year round in Florida. So then again, it's life cycle here of our monarch. They have the egg, larva, chrysalis, and adult. That's their 4 stages. So the female lays the egg in about 2 to 4 days. They hatch. They are these small little caterpillars, which take 2 weeks. They have different stages of growth. So they take 2 weeks. Then they go in this J hang for about 24 hours, which then brings them into a chrysalis. And then they'll be in the chrysalis for 10 to 14 days. And then they hatch, they come out, and you have your butterfly. So I have some photos here. This is from this year. This was a female that my daughter and we saw just outside our home in our garden. And you can see here in this photo, the way that she has fluttered over and tucked her bum underneath, and she's laid an egg, and you can see that is the egg. I saw her lay it, and I went over, took a picture right away, and that's the egg there on the underside. So the monarchs will only lay eggs on milkweed plants. So this is why it's so important to leave it in your garden if you have it, to grow it. If you don't have it, if you see areas that it is growing, if we could protect those areas, because it's the only plant that the caterpillar can eat. The monarch, you'll see it at other flowers drinking nectar, but they will not lay their eggs, because that's a question that I've gotten quite often is I'm seeing lots of butterflies. I see the monarchs in my garden. Why do I never find eggs or caterpillars? And this is why they don't have milkweed. Then this photo here, this is just to show a size difference in the caterpillar. So they start out quite small. They're even smaller than this. This small one has, that's a few days old. And then before they go into their J hang, they are quite large, and they've eaten tons of milkweed. That then they go into this J hang. So these are caterpillars that I raised inside. These are small bug houses that I just have gotten at the dollar store to keep them safe. And they'll find a nice safe spot to J hang, and they'll stay like that, like I said, for the 24 hours. And it's like they unzip. The best way I describe it is like a sleeping bag. It's like they unzip from their head and they wiggle out of their skin drops, and then you have this beautiful emerald chrysalis that has the golden details on it. This is to show the difference over time. So the chrysalis, when it's fresh, it is very green, brilliant. And then over the 2 weeks, the 10 to 14 days, it kind of changes, and it will get see-through. You can see in this last one, you can actually see the wings of the butterfly really clearly underneath. And that means that that one is about to come out, that last one. It would probably come out just a couple hours after I took this photo. So again, I'll show you this here. This is from this year. I had 3. I hung them there, and then they came out. And when they come out, actually, this is one again from this year. You'll see here that the wings are very small and the body is quite large. And that's because it takes the monarch about 4 hours that they will just hang there and slowly flutter their wings and get all of the oxygen and everything that it needs in the wings, and they'll expand, they'll get large. But it is quite alarming when you first see it, because you think that maybe there is something wrong with the butterfly, but they do in just minutes. Actually, it doesn't take long for the wings to get to be regular size, but you can see that they're very delicate. They almost move like tissue paper. So they have to hang. So I don't tag them. I wait at least the 4 hours to make sure their wings are nice and dry because I don't want to impair any of their flight. I'm not sure if I have any questions along the way. I don't see the chat thing right now. Can you not hear me very well? Someone's asked me to talk louder.
Just a little louder, Katie. There seems to be a little bit of background noise, but
okay. I'm sorry.
It's okay. And we usually hold off the questions until the very end, just not to interrupt your presentation.
Okay,
We'll
no
invite
problem.
folks to insert their questions in the chat once the presentation's over.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
Excellent. So I hope that was all right, that you were able to make that out. That's it, kind of quickly, their life cycle and their stages. Then this here, I just have, if anyone was interested in raising monarchs themselves, it's a really great activity for kids because the care for it is, they're very easy to take care of. I find they're pretty low maintenance, and it's a really easy little science nature project for kids, no matter the age. My daughter, we started this. She found the first chrysalis actually by accident on a tomato plant in our garden, and she brought it in the house. And she was just, I think she was just 2 years old. So from there, I looked it up on if we could move the chrysalis, because the tomato I was nervous that it would rot before the butterfly came out because I didn't know the life cycle. So that's how that started, is that we found one. We managed to get it in a jar, and we saw it turn into a butterfly. So then from there, I thought we'd really neat if we could find the caterpillar and see all of the stages, because she was very interested in seeing the changes. And from there, we found some caterpillars. We brought them in, but then what turned into just 2 caterpillars slowly turned into 20, because every time we went out to get more milkweed leaves to feed them, you'd find another 2, another 4. So all of a sudden we had a whole bunch of caterpillars in our home. And then we've just done it every year since, because I just looked into it a little more in the tagging process. So anyhow, if anyone was looking to do this, it's too late now, but they normally in late August, early July, you can find eggs in the caterpillars. And so mainly you need to have your milkweed plants if you have them nearby, because you have to feed them the leaves. Little bug houses, I like to call them caterpillar condos. They're just from the dollar store, and they're in the seasonal section, and they're for kids to collect bugs and learn about them. So that's what I use. I get a butterfly housing or netting, which is easily found online, but I've even found, again, at the dollar store or in the laundry part of houseware, laundry mesh basket, that's worked as well. I've used that because they're a little bit bigger and they're cheaper. And then I like to make sure that if you're doing it, that you have flowers and gardens and wildflowers around. So when you release your butterflies, they have nectar plants to go to. And then optional tagging kit, which I know is not for everyone, because it is a little bit delicate. Let me go down here. So I'm just going to show from here, again, how I care for them. So this is the containers that I had them in this year. And this is outside. I have like a sun porch, and it gets natural light. The temperature is pretty much the same as it is outside. It's not air conditioned. And I have learned that this is the best, even though you can bring them in your home, and they'll still go through all the process. I guess they take a lot of cues from the sun, from the heat, temperature, or if it's cooler out. That's going to help them get all their cues and what they're supposed to do when it comes time to migrate. There was a study on it. They saw more knew where to go if they had all the natural cycles. So that's why I moved them, and I only house them out in this room. And actually this year, because we had a heat wave here, I've always had them be the 14 days in the chrysalis, but then it got quite warm here, and they came out of their chrysalis early within that 10 days. I was really surprised. That's the first time that I've seen that. So they really take the cues on that. Then this is just how I kind of like to track, because I like to record my numbers and report them back to people that they ask me how I'm doing. And what I do is I've given each house a letter, and then I mark every time that I would clean it out, how many are in there, because when they're very small, they're hard to see. And sometimes I think there's only 3 in there, but because I brought them new milkweed, there could have been an egg or a small caterpillar that I didn't see, and then there's 4. Or sometimes they have gotten out, and so I know if it says 4, if I only see 3, I should look for another one. He's either out or he's on one of the milkweed leaves that I was going to throw away. I need to double check that. I also, whenever I do this, my milkweed leaves, the old stuff that I take out, I toss it back in the field where there is milkweed in case of that, in case there is a caterpillar that I missed, because I do know someone that I've connected through social media, and she was tossing her leaves out in the garbage, and then a few days later there was a chrysalis on the top of her garbage can lid because he was in there, and he managed to get more food because she was always tossing her leaves out in that garbage can, and made his chrysalis in the garbage. This again just shows the size. So when they're small, I do tend to keep a lot together in one container. And then once they get bigger, I don't keep any more than 4. So you can see in this other photo, there's 4 large ones. And they'll eat those big ones. They'll eat, I give them like 1 large leaf per caterpillar because they'll eat that within 24 hours. This again, this is more chrysalis, so I do move them from those containers to the safety pins and then attach them to, this is just a mesh netting. So that would be similar to, this one is a butterfly house, but that's that similar look if you got a laundry hamper, or even the bug nettings like for a picnic to keep bugs off of your food. Same idea. And even this one, I'll show the one here on the far left, it has a slight dent in it. And so that's just showing that even these caterpillars that I've taken, I've found them from their egg or as a caterpillar, and I've cared for them and kept them in a safe environment, away from predators, that one still managed to not quite make its chrysalis correctly. And I had a picture of it on my social media. I'm not sure if I have it in my presentation, and one of its wings didn't turn out. It was very small. So it is a very delicate system that they go through in that change. So even if you have milkweed in your garden or in your fields, they will, when they're ready to J-hang and make their chrysalis, they will travel up to a couple feet, 2 or 3 feet away from the milkweed and find somewhere safe. So like I said, she found one in her garbage underneath, but I know other people, windowsills are popular, or the ledges of flower pots. If a lawn tractor hasn't been used in a while, I know around the tires, that's a popular spot because they want a place that is safe from predators and the environment. If there's a storm, if it was windy, they want to be really still. Especially when they come out, like you see that one, the wings are very frail. They have to be protected to dry out their wings for those several hours. So then I'll get into the tagging that I do. So this here is a photo of what the tag looks like. It has all of the information. I register that through Monarch Watch, as well as my waystations are officially registered through them as well. So this little tag has the Monarch Watch. It's got information and it has a number there, that YRX407. So that is the number that is associated with that butterfly. So I emailed a handout, and I believe I added in this tagging data sheet so you can see that, what it looks like. So the tag, whenever you get your tags, they're only good for the year that you get them. So it's important that if you were to tag, if you were gonna get 50 tags, if you had any left over, if you only tagged or used 20, you can't use those the next year because they've given them a special number for year to year. The packet comes with a photo on where to place the tag. It has to go on a special place on their wings so that they can still fly. And there's also instructions on how you would hold the butterfly correctly to not damage its wings so you can safely add the tag. And then you would, on this data sheet, you record that special number, and then you record the date that the butterfly is released. And then you record the location. So I'm from Cornwall, I write that they're all coming from Cornwall. As well, you have to identify them as a male or female butterfly, and then identify it if it is either raised or wild. So you could also go out, catch a butterfly that's wild, tag it, and record it on the sheet. I've never done that. I only record the ones that I raise. Whoops. Here we go. So then male or female, everyone asks, how do you identify that? So I have two here. There's just one kind of very slight difference. And once you see it and know how, it's quite easy. And you'll notice it all the time whenever you see butterflies now. So this is a nice big female on the one side. Her lines are a little bit thicker, but then the male has these two dots, if you can see those, and those are scent glands for when it comes to breeding. So that is how you tell the difference. So I guess a reason to tag them is that for me tagging them, and then I report all this information back to Monarch Watch. I fill out the data sheet, I send it to them. So then with that, it helps them know that if I raised 20, they know that at least 20 are coming from our area and trying to make it down to Mexico. So it gives them a little bit of numbers on how many are trying to migrate. They have scientists and volunteers that are down in Mexico, and they are counting and looking at butterflies, looking for these tags and trying to count how many have migrated from year to year so that they have a number, because they are getting close to being on the endangered list. So then they report that back on their website, which I check every year. It's normally in February that it comes out. And I hope that when I go on there, that I see one of those, the codes that are on the butterfly. I hope that at least one of them gets there. I've not seen it yet. But then it's interesting because you can see the whole sheet and you can see the ones that they have found and where they've come from. You can also, there's a separate data sheet in which if anyone along the way between here and Mexico sees a butterfly in their garden or at a park, they can, if they can catch that little number, report back to it. And so that one's even interesting, which I would really love if one of my butterflies was even on that, because then you're like, oh great, at least it made it to as far as as this location. And there is a comment section for people to write that they saw it either in the garden on nectar flowers, they saw it in a park, and they can even, I've seen even written that they found it and it was dead on a sidewalk, and that's how they found that tag. So I find that interesting as well, and I would be happy to find mine on that list. So then this is just briefly two organizations that I follow and I guess kind of work with. So the Monarch Watch, that's where I get my tags and do the waystation registry. And they also have lots of butterfly gardening information. And then this other program that I'm with is called Monarchs in the Rough, because my waystations are actually, I guess I have a family business that's a golf course on the side. And so a lot of the areas that are out of play areas that are in the rough, we've let just grow naturally. And that's part of how this also kind of happened, was that we decided to leave a few areas that we don't need to mow, and Milkweed grew and Monarchs came. So this is a program that is specifically for golf courses. It is free. It's something, if you know golf courses in the area, that they can join, and they're just saying that we've left areas to grow naturally for pollinators and to encourage monarchs. So I'm with that as well, and a lot of my way stations are throughout the golf course, and we have signage everywhere that that's what's going on in those areas. So then next I have creating habitats. So I did take a course last summer and learned more because I wanted to know, again, more in detail, because all my research that I've done has just kind of been on my own, through finding things online, through just experience working with the butterflies. But then I took a course to get more information, and that was through Monarch Joint Venture. And so what I learned from there is that, as wonderful as it is and fun to raise butterflies and raise the monarchs, it's most important that we are creating and protecting habitat for them. Because we could all right now raise 100 butterflies each, and we think, wow, we have so many butterflies, there's so many of them, this is fantastic, their numbers are going to be up. But what we need really is, between here and Mexico, places for them to go so they can feed on the nectar, so they have the energy to make the journey. For when they make their way back, that there is milkweed so they can breed and have a place to lay their eggs and have the caterpillars grow and turn into butterflies. And when they get here, that there's more for them, again, to do that life cycle. So that's what's going to support them the most. So again, the milkweed is important, nectar plants, and ones that bloom in our area, that bloom in the spring, summer, and the fall. Because even though there is a little amount of time, we'll see the monarchs coming in July, late June or July. They'll kind of be here for a little while, and they rest up and they find each other, find their mates. They need blooms there to eat and survive. And then we won't see monarchs for a while, because all of those ones that made it and laid eggs, they're gonna die. And then we need all our fall blooms right now for them to fuel up to make their journey. I've also learned that it's very important that the nectar plants that we have for them are actually native plants and native wildflowers to our area, because they've also done a study on that. And as garden centers expand and make new varieties of flowers or new colors, and they're playing with plant genetics there, that not just the monarch, but our other pollinators aren't necessarily recognizing them as much as those are the plants that I go to eat. There's a little disconnect there. So I have on the bottom here some that are in my garden, and that's my daughter. We plant new flowers every spring for the butterflies, and we get the wildflower mix. That's really easy, and we sprinkle that around, and we kind of let that garden do its own thing. And then the purple cornflower or echinacea, I found that one to be the most popular. I keep planting more and more and more of that every year. And not only the monarchs, but I'm getting a lot more of the larger, the swallowtail butterflies, which are really pretty. And then last I have water source, because they do need to drink water. So whether you have a bird bath or a pond, I know some people have kind of water features in their yards, in their garden. Those are good. I've even noticed sometimes when it's really hot in the summer, I don't know if you've ever noticed that, if you are gardening and you spray the hose, the ground, or like a gravel, we have a gravel driveway, and if it gets wet, you'll see a lot of different butterflies come and land because they're then sucking the water out of the ground. And luckily we live near a creek, so there's a lot of water around for them. So again, this is just native plants that are for the monarchs. So we have, of course, the milkweed, the wild asters. We have lots of those around. The purple ones, they like that, and the goldenrod. I've also this Popeye Joe. That one really grows a lot around the creek. It seems to like a wetland areas, and I always see lots of monarchs there. And again, your coneflower. So these are just ideas of ones to plant and add more of. So here's a picture. These are the butterflies from this year. So you could tell I'm not the best gardener, but I put in and I leave the plants that I know the butterflies are going to like. And that's part of what's been great about this is I did everything thinking of monarchs and what do they want and what do they need. And then from there, it kind of trickles, because now we have all these great big swallowtails that come, and all the other smaller butterflies, as well as the honeybees, all these pollinators, hummingbirds that come to our garden constantly. And it's really enjoyable to see that. But these two this year were the most popular. Again, that purple cornflower, and then that nice thistle was really popular. It always is loaded with butterflies. And the thistle, that's not in my garden, that's in our way stations. And so every time you walk by, you'd see the butterflies. And again, these are ones that are in the spring. They're earlier. These ones come out before we see monarchs, but they were really popular with our pollinators and seeing the bees and those first few small butterflies that everyone sees, the little white ones. They're white, blue, and yellow. They flutter around. So then I have here the guidelines for Monarch Waystation. So if you were interested in becoming an official waystation, again, in that printout that I had put together that I believe was sent out, I have the full registration form there if anyone was interested in looking at that. There is a small fee with it to be registered, but it goes towards the monarch conservation, and this is through the Monarch Watch. And then you can as well purchase a sign, which you can display in your garden or the area, even if it's a community garden, community area, a school, they can display that as well, and you get the nice sign. And it's really simple. No one no one officially comes and checks. It's all on the honor system. But they really only ask that you have about 10 milkweed plants growing in the area, and they don't all have to be in the same spot. That could be scattered about. So if you have it in a field that's beside you, if it's just next to your lawn, if it's in a couple of your flower beds, minimum of 100 square foot area. There's a list of nectar plants that once you look at it, there's so many, and there's a list for, I think, summer and fall. and a list of annuals and biannuals. There's a different list there, and you'll be surprised how many you actually already have. And then there's management practices as well. So that's just if you have things like some feeders for them, if there's water nearby. And again, a lot of these, if it's your own garden at home, you're already most likely doing a bunch of this, like removal of dead plants or doing compost, putting natural fertilizers down. So again, it's very easy. And you just need to be doing, I think, at least one or two of those things. Same with the nectar plants. As long as you have one or two from each list, you qualify. So this year, this is our sign that's up at one of the way stations, and this one is just behind my home. So this is the one that we always venture out and go into. So again, lots of milkweed, and then there's a picture of it with the bloom, with the flower on it. So that there is what's going to attract the adult monarchs. They're going to smell that and they're going to come, and it's actually a really pretty flower. And it smells really nice, and it brings, again, lots of honeybees, hummingbird moth. That one's a really neat one to see if you know what that one is or look that one up. And it's great. There's just lots of activity once you start, because then you have all these pollinators and different bugs, and then you have all these birds, and we have unique different birds that we haven't seen before. You're just all of a sudden making a whole ecosystem, I guess. Ecosystem, or you know what I mean. Then this is in the fall. So this is coming soon. Our milkweed, it's important to leave it after it's bloomed and after our caterpillars are gone. And in honesty, it's going to start to look yellow and brown and not great. And you're going to want to pull it out of your garden or mow it down. But you need to leave it, because these pods are on there and they are full of the seeds. And they're really fun because they're going to pop, and it's like a big dandelion, and they're big and fluffy, and that's how they spread the seeds. So then you can either go out and collect the pods and take the seeds out and scatter them in a specific area that you'd want it to grow to your garden, or along a field, along roadway, beside your home. It's also really fun. My daughter and I, we go out and we'll shake them all out because kids love it. They think it's great, and they blow in the wind. The seeds, though, they do need to feel the winter freeze. So that's important as well, because I know some people will collect them and then they keep them in their home, and then they try to grow it and nothing happens. So they do need to feel all the frost and the frozen in the ground. And I always would scatter more than you want to grow, because again, if they don't get fully in the ground, birds will come and they'll eat them. And then in the spring, you can monitor how many plants you want, and then you can pick some out. Oh, that's my daughter, and she just loves all the butterflies. That's us. Perfect. Then I have my social media pages. So I'm on Facebook and Instagram. And so on there, I just kind of share what I'm doing. Because again, this started by accident. It was just for fun, something for my daughter and I to do. And as I kind of posted on my personal page, people were, oh, that's neat, and asking me questions. And I had friends then texting me, is this an egg? Is this a caterpillar? So then I thought, you know what, I'm just going to make our own pages. And also we named the area our way stations Mable's Meadow. And that's just after the lady that lived on our property before us. We dedicated it to her because I know that she would be thrilled to see all of this happening, and to see my daughter out there, because I knew her, I knew Mable when I was a young girl. So yeah, so I share that. I share other little things that are kind of like conservation or nature, birds that we see, different bugs and things that we see. Turtles, we like turtles and frogs as well in the spring.